Hi students, and we're going to get some more practice here with factoring polynomials. So we've got x squared minus 12x plus 35. So when we factor polynomials, we know we're going to get one binomial multiplied by another binomial. So, and because this leading coefficient in front of the x squared is 1, the only way to get x squared is x times x. So I'm going to show you a few details here that are going to help us out. So before we were saying that we're finding two numbers. They have to multiply to make 35, positive, and they have to add to make negative 12. So in order for two numbers to multiply to make a positive and add to make a negative, they both have to be negative values. So think about that. A negative times a negative is always a positive, and a negative plus a negative is always a negative. So we can start filling in the signs here as well that we're going to have to use. So I'm looking for two negative numbers that multiply to make 35 and add to make 12. Well, the only pair that makes sense is negative 7 and negative 5, and these definitely multiply to make positive 35, and they add to make negative 12. So this is simply x minus 7 and x minus 5. So notice how this works. So to get this last term here, it's negative 7 times negative 5, which gives us our positive 35. Where does this negative 12 term come from? Well, this is when negative 7 multiplies x, and when negative 5 multiplies this x. So this is your inner and your outer, give you your negative 12. So let's try another example to practice this. So here we've got x squared minus 5x minus 24. So we know that when we factor this, it's going to be one binomial times another binomial. And because this is a leading term of 1, this is going to be x times x. So now let's take a look at our setup. I have numbers that need to multiply to make negative 24. Well, the only way to multiply to make a negative number is if one of those numbers is positive and the other one is negative. Now, I'm just making this one positive, this one negative. It really doesn't matter the order that these binomials come in. So I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to make negative 24 and add to make negative 5. So this means that the larger one has to be negative. If the larger number is negative, then if I add a smaller number to it, it's going to stay negative. So let's think about our multiples that give us 24. So I can have negative 24 and 1. Well, if I add these together, I get negative 23, so that's not going to work. I could have negative 12 and 2, and that will give me negative 10. That's not going to work, but we're going in the right direction. So I could have negative 8 and 3. And this one gives us our negative 5. So our values are positive 3, negative 8, positive 3, negative 8. So we're going to take a look at a more complicated example here. I've got 60 minus 20h minus 5h squared. So this one, we've got a few different things to set up. So first thing we want to do is we want to rewrite this in descending power. So this is negative 5, negative 5h squared minus 20h plus 60. That's our first step. Now notice that we actually have a common factor here. We can factor out negative 5. So if I factor out negative 5, I get negative 5 onto h squared plus 4h minus 12. And now we're ready to factor using our trinomial approach. So I'm looking for numbers that add to make positive 4 and multiply to make negative 12. So pause the video here and try factoring on your own. So let's take a look here. Well, the only thing that will work is if I have one number positive, one number negative. And the positive one has to be larger in order for them to add to make a positive value. The only one that works is the pair of 6 and negative 2. So our final answer, x plus 6, x take away 2, all multiplied by negative 5.